limited to items that appear on the committee agenda. All public comment speakers must present proof of Tennessee residency. And so our first person and only person on the sign-up sheet is Mr. Steve Ritter, speaking on Bill 2025-1011 in opposition. Mr. Ritter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm here today because I believe in the preservation of our parks. Earlier today, you heard a thing about appraisal, and let me clarify that. The scope of work for Collier's International Valuation and Appraisal Services was not for the land value. It was for the improvements for the fire station. If you look on page 61, bullet point number 13, it says, the valuation stated herein assumes professional management and operation of the buildings throughout the lifetime of the improvements with adequate maintenance and repair program. Has nothing to do with the value of that park, which is worth probably close to $10 million, the way land values are. That location, that's one of the most valuable pieces in the park portfolio. I want to repeat, it's one of the most valuable. And guess what? P&H Properties is paying no rent, zero rent to the parks for a term of 30 years with 2 10-year renewables. I don't see how anybody can say from the Parks Department that that's in the best interest of the parks. It's certainly not in the best interest of the public. That park belongs to the people of Nashville, Davidson County. It does not belong to a private developer. And you are essentially giving it away today and tomorrow, because this is not what we should be doing with our parks. We had a park policy that said open space, and to protect our parks, please protect our parks. That park belongs to the people, and the people need to have that park access. The park sets the schedule for it and the operating hours. That's not going to happen under this. Please defer this and we can get some more questions regarding the land value. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ritter. All right, next, colleagues, and we do have a quorum, just for the record, with myself, Councilwoman Allen, Councilman Cortez, Councilwoman Evans Siegel, Councilwoman Gamble, Councilwoman Huffman, Councilwoman Johnston, Councilwoman Porterfield, Councilwoman Swar, and that's it. All right, moving on to items that are on consent. I'm going to read those item numbers. If anything needs to come off of consent, if you could raise your hand, and I'll recognize you. On the consent agenda, Resolution 2025-1477, 1479, 1480, 1481, 1482, 1483, 1484, 1485, 1486, 1487, 1488, 1489, 1490, 1491, 1493, 1494, 1496, 1500, 1501, Bill 2025-1003, 1009, and 1010. Does anything need to come off of consent? Councilwoman Swara.
Thank you, Chair. 1479, 1483, and 1491.
Say those again.
1479, 1483, and 1491.
Councilwoman Porterfield.
I don't need to be recognized, Chair.
Does anything else need to come off of consent? All right, I will read the items that are on consent. Item number 1, Resolution 2025-1477, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, and Welsh. A resolution appropriating a total of $200,000 from the Juvenile Court of Nashville and Davidson County to various nonprofit organizations selected to receive Community Partnership Fund grants. Item number 4, Resolution 2025-1480, sponsors Toombs and Huffman, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government to join the state of Tennessee and other local governments in amending the Tennessee State Subdivision Opioid Abatement Agreement and approving the related settlement agreements. Resolution 2025-1481, a resolution approving the Benefit Board's waiver of repayment of pension benefit overpayments for Herman Peters under Section 3.08.230 of the Metropolitan Code. Resolution 2025-1482, sponsors Toombs and Hill, a resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement with TD Synex Corporation for the purchase of advanced technology solutions for the Department of Information Technology Services. Item number 8, Resolution 2025-1484, sponsors Toombs and Hill, a resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement with Johnson Controls, Inc. for a wide range of HVAC services and related products for the Department of General Services. Resolution 2025-1485, sponsors Toombs and Hill, a resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement with the McGrath Rent Corp., DBA Mobile Modular Management Corp. for modulars for lease or the purchase for lease or purchase for the Department of General Services. Resolution 2025-1486, sponsors Toombs and Hill, resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement with Turner and Townsend Heery LLC for construction management services for the Department of General Services. Resolution 2025-1487, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, and Welsh, resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide an array of programs and direct patient care services to meet the public health needs of Tennessee citizens. Resolution 2025-1488, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, Welsh, and Allen, a resolution approving a grant contract by and between the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Tennessee Justice Center for the provision of assistance and support to individuals enrolling in public benefit programs for health insurance and food assistance. Resolution 2025-1489, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, Welsh, and Allen, a resolution approving a grant contract between the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Mental Health Cooperative for the provision of emergency psychiatric care for individuals in crisis at the Mental Health Crisis Treatment Center and staff to support the Metro Nashville Police Department co-response model known as Nashville Partners in Care, and the Nashville Fire Department co-response model known as Nashville Responders Engaged and Committed to Help. Resolution 2025-1490, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, Bradford, and Welsh, a resolution approving a grant contract by and between the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health and Pet Community Center for the provision of spay and neutering services. Item 16, Resolution 2025-1492, sponsors Toombs, Vo, Welsh, and Allen, a resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the Watkins College of Art at Belmont University to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation for a commissioned mural art project on the rear exterior wall of the Easley Community Center at E.S. Rose Park and Athletic Complex. Resolution 2025-1493, sponsors Toombs and Huffman, a resolution approving an application for a hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Office of Emergency Management to expand awareness of emerging trends and deliver the latest and most pertinent training to personnel. Resolution 2025-1494, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, Welsh, and Allen, a resolution accepting a grant from the Nashville Police and Public Safety Alliance to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department to fund the testing of sexual assault kits by an outside laboratory or laboratories to improve effectiveness in the evidence processing through appropriate outsourcing. Item number 20, Resolution 2025-1496, sponsors Cap, Toombs, and Evan Siegel, a resolution accepting a donation from the BNA Woodland Oz Business LLC in the amount of $50,000 as a contribution towards infrastructure improvements near 408 Woodland Street. Resolution 2025-1500, sponsors Toombs and Evan Siegel, resolution approving a contract between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and the Perkinson Company, Inc. to provide AMA products, parts, and services for the Department of Water and Sewerage Services. Resolution 2025-1501, sponsors Gamble, Horton, and Evan Siegel. A resolution approving a participation agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Department of Water and Sewerage Services and Artist Lofts LP to provide sanitary sewer service improvements for Artist Lofts' proposed development as well as other existing properties in the area. Moving to bills on second reading, item number 24, Bill 2025-1003, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, Hill, and Bowe, an ordinance to amend section 10.60.020 of the Metropolitan Code to transfer the administration related to the registration of burglar and fire alarm systems from the Department of Codes Administration to the Nashville Fire Department. Item number 26, Bill 2025-1009, sponsors Cap, Toombs, Gamble, and Allen, an ordinance approving a lease agreement by and between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Education and KIP Nashville, a Tennessee nonprofit corporation. Bill 2025-1010, sponsors Stiles, Toombs, and Evan Siegel, an ordinance authorizing the granting of a temporary construction easement to the Autumn Lake Apartments LP on a parcel or property owned by the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. And that concludes the items that are on consent. Does anything need to come off? Councilwoman Porterfield.
Thank you, Chair. Can you pull agenda item 26, Bill 2025-1009?
Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we pull RS 2025-1480, 1482, 1489, and BL 2025-1003?
All right, that is item number 4, resolution 2025-1480, 1482, 1489, which is item number 13. And then item number 24, bills on second reading, Bill 2025-1003.
Correct, thank you.
All right, is there anything left on consent? It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Anyone not voting? Motion carries. All right, moving, going back to the items that were not on consent. Item number 2, resolution 2025-1478. Sponsor Toombs, a resolution setting the compensation of the chair and members of the Metropolitan Board of Equalization. Can I get a motion? Been properly moved and seconded. I see, moving on to discussion, I see Councilwoman Benedict that you have a substitute. Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, if I may ask someone to move the substitute first.
Been properly moved and seconded. Back to you, Councilwoman Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. So, colleagues, this substitute does 3 things. First, it updates the compensation. So as the original substitute does, as the original resolution does, the substitute raises the pay for the members of the MBOE to $100 per day for the chair and $90 per day for the members. This substitute also strengthens independence. It ensures that the MBOE is not only independent in fact, but it also maintains the appearance of independence from the assessor of property by moving payroll oversight to the Department of Finance is one of the requests. And then it also improves transparency and access. The assessor and the mayor's office can determine and provide an appropriate meeting space that the public can access without special clearance. It also, on the access side, the Metro Clerk will hold all audio and video recordings of the MBOE meetings, and those can be posted online. The clerk is the Public Records Request Coordinator today, and they can hold those recordings for public request purposes. So why this matters, the taxpayers have to have confidence in the fairness of the appeals process. We know this year with the property reassessments being record high, the public has a lot of questions about that. And so as they're going through the appeals process, it's important for us to give them transparency and trust in their government as they go through that process. And so these things are designed to strengthen that. It reinforces that transparency and, of course, the neutrality. But I think most importantly, it aligns with what Assessor Wilhoit stated in last month's audit committee meeting when she said, I question why an independent board is both physically located within the Assessor of Property's office and financially housed within my department budget. I fully support to realign the independent MBOE in a manner that honors its intent that requires legislative action. So with that, I hope that you will support the substitute. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there any additional discussion on the substitute? Councilwoman Sora on the substitute?
Thank you, Chair. I don't even have a whole lot, but I know that the assessor of property is here. Just I would like a take on the substitute.
Okay. Assessor Wilhoit?
Thank you, Chair, and to the members of the Metro Council. Thank you, Council Lady at Large Swa, for allowing me to speak on the substitute. We are in full agreement that the Independent Metro Board of Equalization be compensated for the work that they do. The Independent Metro Board of Equalization has requested increase in compensation because they really are there 24, like 8 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday, every day in reference to the various hearings that has increased since the last reappraisal. We support the finance compensation to the Independent Metro Board Organization. We requested on August the 7th of 2025 that the compensation to the board be done by anyone other than us. When I took office back in 2016, we questioned why is the Independent Metro Board Equalization compensation in the assessor's budget, and so did the former assessor of property, Ms. Joanne North, did the very same thing and questioned that process. But that is the way Metro government, from the mayor to the Metro Council, would be you, established that structure 30 years ago. So we just went with the flow of what we were blessed with by the voters. Nevertheless, we continue to remain independents in our office with them being in our office. And also, it is the Metro Council that establishes compensation. And of course, again, we stand on the point of the compensation. In reference to the move, we do agree that the Independent Metro Board of Equalization should be moved out of our office. Once again, we question this structure that was set up by Metro government and the mayor 30 years ago. And of course, that is how it is today. Going back to the compensation, we had Metro Legal do some research, and they found where it had been line itemed up to a point, and then it stopped being line item for the Metro Board of Equalization to be on their own. So 30 years ago, something happened. I wasn't born then. But nonetheless, something happened. So of course, going back to that. But in reference to the move, we do not support that the assessor of property and my staff be responsible for where you move them. It is the mayor and the Metro Council that established that structure to be in our office of the assessor of property. So it is the mayor and the Metro Council that should, redesign where they should be. I caution you to ensure that they be in a place that is not challenging to the people who volunteer to be on the Independent Metro Board of Equalization. Again, they are volunteers. And I also, challenge you to make it not difficult for my amazing staff to be able to assist them as established under the law of Tennessee. So that is very important. I ask that you place this responsibility of being the Mayflower with the Department of General Services. That is their job, to find location, to place various offices and departments. They are right now assisting us as we are expanding our staff to find places for our additional staff to be as we move into a new reappraisal, as we're working on it right now in 2028. So yes, we support the move, but no, we do not support that it is the assessor of property's office and our staff that be a part of that move. You make that decision, but please be mindful in reference to where they should be, because under the law, we are required to assist the Independent Metro Board of Equalization. And then lastly, I think the other question was in reference to the audio video provisioning. Perfectly within right for the audio and video provisioning be maintained by the Metro clerk. Currently, the Independent Metro Board of Equalization requires that we have minutes, and that is posted after they've approved their minutes. They also require that we do public notice of their meetings prior to their hearings. And those are the things that they have directed us to do. With some of the Independent Metro Board Equalization, they've even stated that they will be open to video recording like you do with other boards. They're open to that. So with that being said, that could be something that you could also provide transparency more for the people of Nashville, Davidson County. And I'll close and I say that no office more than the Office of the Assessor of Property is all about transparency and all about providing fair and equitable values to the people of Nashville, Davidson County. We have done well over 409 presentations since I've taken office, and in January to June, we did 54. The information that is required of the constituency to know when they're doing a hearing is provided in the letter when we send to them for announcing their new value. It is on our website. And again, those outreach presentations that we've done, we want to make it as easy as possible for the people of Nashville and Davidson County property owners to be able to appeal their values, which is why we do what we do, and to be able to benefit from the right of being able to appeal and trust in our work. So yes, we thank you for this opportunity to speak with you about that. And yes, we are in support in the final amendment for the audio to be provided to Metro Clerk. And in addition, if they want to do videoing, that's great too. That would be even better, no doubt. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Assessor. Councilwoman Suara.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Assessor Will Hoyt. And thanks for sponsor for the amendment. I think transparency is always good. I have a question for the administration in terms of the part about the location of the board. I understand that, the board is looking at property assessment. That's what people are appealing. But does the administration have any objection to where they move to, or do you have any say in this amendment at all?
Mr. Rosenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave Rosenworth, Mayor's Office. Council member, we are not generally asked to assist to assist boards and commissions find meeting locations. We do have a number of pre-fit rooms, other Metro meeting spaces. Of course, it would need to be on Metro property somewhere. We can help and try to identify and bring the people together to find a place. I know that the Board of Equalization in particular meets for quite a while as opposed to an hour or two every once in a while. So it creates a little bit more of a challenge, but there are various meeting spaces that we could assist with. As far as the amendment on a whole, really haven't had an opportunity to dig into it and what it might mean for us. So would prefer not to say at this point until we've had a little more time to have conversations around it, what implications might be in there.
Councilwoman Suara.
That last statement about the implication, does that mean that there's more work that needs to be done on it? Do we need to wait on that? Or, I did not expect that piece, but if the administration wants to look at it and look at the implication, does that mean we need more time to do that?
Councilmember, I don't know if there's anything that comes with a move, whether that means anything that they need technically or what it means for the assessor's staff to be going. Depends on how far they have to go and what that means for workload. Definitely don't want to speak for anything for the clerk or what it looks like from a finance perspective, because that's way outside of my ability to speak intelligently. As much of this appears to be at this moment.
I don't want to take up all the time, Chair, but it seems as if with every comment, something has come up. So is finance ready to take up the financial part of it? And is Clark already okay with their part of it? I mean, is everybody okay with all of this? I understand the need for the transparency, and I'm fully in support of it. I have no objection to it, but I just want to make sure that all of the pieces and all the people that are involved knows what is happening. And then the last question for Director Derby, and I'll stop it, is that if we do, I know there's a payment component to this, which is the payment for the chair and the members. So if for any reason we should defer it, will that impact how they're paid or when they're paid, or do we need to move forward, pass it, and then make all the adjustment later? I'm just asking for your thought. Thank you.
If I can go to Ms. Wiggins first, and then I'll come to you, Director Darby. Ms. Wiggins?
Thank you, Chair. Mary Jo Wiggins, Finance. Specifically on the component of the budget for the payment for the members coming to Finance, it really should go to an admin account. You don't want to include that into Finance because then it's Finance budget. It's really not intended for Finance's use. So we can certainly accommodate the payment, but it should be included logistically from a budget perspective, it should be included in the admin accounts, not Finance.
Thank you, Ms. Wiggins. Director Darby?
It's my understanding that the payments to the members of the board would be retroactive back to July. So regardless of whether it passes today or it were to pass after a deferral, the payments would be retroactive. The funds were already appropriated in the assessor of properties budget for FY26. So this request is for the Department of Finance to administer the compensation of those funds.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would like to move for a one-meeting deferral so that at least, I thought everything was already set and everything is already in place for this amendment, but to me, from all the answers, it seems as if there's some questions here and there. And if the payment is retroactive anyway, so the 1 minute is not going to change that once it passes. So I would like to move for a one-meeting deferral.
Is there a second on the deferral? Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Councilwoman Johnson, do you have something? I'll come back to you, Councilwoman Allen. Do you have something on the deferral?
Yeah, it could be applied to both. So it sounds like everything is in place except for who is going to be collaborating on the move, whether it's the mayor's office or general services. I actually agree with the assessor that general services is probably a more appropriate department to be looking for that. So what I'm wondering is for a mechanism, is it possible to amend on the floor the substitute to change mayor's office to general services so that we could move this along? Or is that a thing? Or do we need to defer it so that we can amend the substitute, which we haven't even approved yet, or file another substitute? Can we amend on the floor is my question.
Director Darby?
It's always my preference to have an amendment in writing that the members can see, so it would be a late filed amendment. There's time to do that before tomorrow night's meeting. If this deferral for one meeting is approved and it's automatically deferred tomorrow night, then there is time to either propose a new substitute with this language or to propose an additional substitute.
Okay, so could we move this forward, understanding that I'm sure the sponsor of the substitute would do a late filed amendment to her own substitute to change mayor's office to general services. Is that agreeable?
Councilwoman Allen on the deferral motion?
Thank you. I think that's a good suggestion. I would suggest that we need to change the word assessor to general services. We're still leaving it under the assessor's responsibility and saying that the general services will help. And I think the request has been to just put that squarely on general services because that's what they do. And it seems all the same to, if we're good with the late filed amendment, to do it that way. I would ask one other question, which is the part about finance, moving that into an administrative account. Is that something that in the following budget we'll also need to change administratively? Do we need to deal with that at this point, or is that just the next budget chair will change a line and add an administrative line as part of the budget approval process, or do we need to deal with that technicality at this point?
Ms. Wiggins? Ms. Wiggins?
Thank you. The budget is already set, the ordinance for this year, so it'd be
I'm sorry.
futuristic.
For FY '27.
Seven.
Doing, I mean, because right now, all this does is deals with what we're doing this year, and I think what we want to do is long-term, move it into an administrative account. So this deals with it this year. Do we need to fix the future, or can we do that just in the budget process for FY '27 going forward?
I believe the way the substitute is written in section 5, that the Department of Finance administer the compensation page, we can administer it this year.
Correct. It says
It's
to
not
do
in
it
our
for FY
budget.
'26, and then it doesn't say what happens in FY '27. So
Correct.
to me, if we're limiting this statement to this year, I guess my question is that cool? And then in our budget process, putting together FY '27, we can simply have a new administrative line and deal with that part later.
Yes,
We don't need to catch that part here.
yes.
So I would just say I'm good with I'm good with the deferral or with the late filed amendment. I just would just suggest that we think through where we want to stick that word general services, whether we're writing it over mayor's office or assessor's office.
If I can recognize Director Darby real quickly to explain the logistics of where we are on this resolution, and then I will go to the sponsor, and if there's still some discussion on the deferral, I will go to Councilwoman Evans Siegel.
So, yeah, we are still on a deferral motion, but to some of these other questions about moving things to require general services to do something, or to look into next year's budget and appropriation for either the assessor or directly to the Board of Equalization, that would come up next year in next year's budget. And that's something that, assuming that the Board of Equalization is moved into its own space with presumably its own staff and whatnot, then they would submit for a budget just like any other board or commission with their own staff would do, presumably with the assistance of the assessor's office to the extent that the assessor's office still needed to provide that. This resolution does not do that. This resolution does not separate the board from the assessor. It makes requests to find space, to have their recordings filed with the clerk's office, and to request the Department of Finance to administer the compensation. So it does not actually make that move. That would have to be done via ordinance.
Thank you, Director Darby. Councilwoman Benedict, you want to speak on the deferral motion?
Thank you, Chair, and Director Darby, thank you for that thorough explanation. I really appreciate the dialogue here in committee as well. So I appreciate the assessors on the same page. I think that section 3 in regards to finding a meeting place, my goal there was to actually have the assessors engagement with that. I want to make sure, to her point, that her staff is able to easily attend these meetings because they are long meetings. I want to make sure that the MBOE members can easily access these meetings because they are long meetings and multiple days a week. So I think to Mr. Rosenberg's comment that there are spaces within Metro government that very likely will work. I think general services is definitely a better way to state this. And so I can absolutely bring a late filed amendment tomorrow, changing section 3 so that general services is the responsible department for finding that additional space. I do want them to do that in consultation with the assessor, though. I think that it's important for them to hear from the assessor, and, I don't want them to pick something in, Southeast Community Center, right? I want to make sure the assessor can easily access the space. The other thing on the finance side, Director Darby just said it, that this is just about, I can't encumber funds in this fiscal year via a resolution like this. The goal here is to just, again, in the public transparency, we're giving a pay raise to these MBOE members. Let's make sure that it's clear to the public. A lot of times people say to us, follow the money, right? And as if we're doing something improper. The assessor is not doing anything improper here. But let's make sure that it's crystal clear with the public that the money is not being paid out of that budget if possible, and it is being paid out of that budget, but that it's being administered by a separate third party, the Department of Finance, is the goal there in that one. So it's really about that transparency and public trust for that piece. So I guess to that end, if the deferral motion is withdrawn, then I will be bringing a late filed amendment tomorrow relative to the meeting space to have general services consult with the assessor to locate that space. Also, those the date for, the effective date for these on the substitute is October 31st. So the goal is to have 6 weeks to figure these out. They are requests. If additional time is needed, as we've seen with other departments, I'm certain that we'd be, you know, we're fine with them taking the amount of time that they need to be successful here. Thank you again, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Evans Siegel on the deferral motion.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's really, if it's going to be deferred, there's something I think we need to add, or if there's a late file, I think there's something that's still missing here on this language, which is I think it would be helpful if we are changing it to general services and they're working together, that we make sure that they are working together for a space where it can be recorded. One of the issues that I know we've run up against in the past is under state law, the evidence that is submitted for an appeal is at the local level protected from disclosure. And oftentimes the only evidence we as a public can see is either a video recording or here is an audio recording. And that becomes really important when you're looking at groups that are getting government subsidies. We have had an experience, at least one that I know of, where a group was getting a pretty significant tax break, appealed their taxes. The only way we were able to know what evidence there was because of recordings of those hearings. They then turned around and sold it for a bunch more than they'd approved it for. And so when we're sort of doing our due diligence on who we're working with and who we're giving subsidies to, being able to have that evidence is really critical.
Is there any further discussion on the deferral? Councilwoman Suara?
I just wanted to say if Director Darby says we can do this with late file, I'll be glad to withdraw the deferral.
So you're withdrawing your deferral motion? Okay, so we're back on the motion to approve the substitute. Any further discussion on the substitute? Councilwoman Porterfield.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a clarifying question about Director Darby mentioning that my understanding of what she said is that the separation of the entities will be required through an ordinance. If Director Darby could state that again, I may have missed a little bit of it.
Director Darby?
Well, as you all know, the council acts by ordinance. The charter requires that all actions be by ordinance unless there is a resolution specifically authorizing you to take that action. Here, we're looking at a resolution for to set the compensation for the members of the Board of Equalization. The state law specifically allows us to do this by resolution. So this substitute onto that resolution is adding in what would essentially be kind of a non-binding resolution portion of it, making these requests for these three things to happen. So in order for us to require these three things to happen, we would have to do that by ordinance.
So I guess I would love some clarity on why we're doing a resolution if we will then need to turn around and do an ordinance. Would it be better to just do an ordinance? Can we get some clarity there?
Those decisions are typically made by the council members to determine whether or not you want to do something by resolution or ordinance. But the resolution that's before us is permitted to go by resolution. So the resolution that was filed was to set the compensation of the board members specifically. The substitute resolution would be adding some things that are not permitted by state law to happen by resolution. So those are presented in a way that are requests for the departments to do, as opposed to requirements for the departments to do, which we would have to do by ordinance.
Okay, thank you. One more clarifying question. So, and I'm good with, we're making requests via a resolution. For the changing of the pay, does that need to happen through ordinance or can that happen through resolution?
That can happen through resolution. State law specifically authorizes that action to be taken by resolution.
Okay, thank you, Director Darby. And one Special Counsel Darby. And then one final question about moving, once we move the location, will this require any additional staff for MBOE, or is there any type of staffing changes that will need to happen?
That's something that needs to be investigated to determine what kind of staff what kind of independent staff they would need and what kind of assistance that they receive from the assessor's office. So state law does provide that the assessor provide assistance to the Board of Equalization. I have had conversations with another Board of Equalization directors, and they have specifically moved their board out from under the assessor's office. And so I have been getting some information on how they went about doing that and what that structure looks like. But that is not a complete investigation at this point on my part, but I think that other departments can also look into that as well.
Thank you. My final question, Chair. I thought that was my final question. So would we, I guess, I don't know if this question is to maybe the assessor's office. Maybe I believe that may be where the question would be best directed. But if we were to move forward with this, are they good with the current staffing to handle this move until next budget and to give us time to determine between now and the next budget if additional staffing is needed and able to do this? My concern is just if we move it now, do we have the capacity to move it now and what that will look like?
So I think the point of the resolution is that it's a non-binding resolution. It's making requests. And so the folks who are identified in the resolution are supposed to try to figure this out and how it can be possible, and bring that information back. So it's not directing anyone to do it. It's not a directive, it's a request to look into this and see how we can get it done. Yes, Councilwoman Porterfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with it being a non-binding resolution and that we're making a request. But in the sections at the bottom, there's not anything where we're asking them to report back and tell us if it's feasible. We're just making the request, and we're asking that they do this within the next 6 weeks. So I appreciate the sponsor bringing it, and I am in support, and I'm glad that the assessor and the sponsor are pretty much on the same page, with the exception of one part, because it makes it a lot easier for us to determine how we need to move forward. I just want to make sure that we're doing it in the way that is the most prudent and makes the most sense.
Thank you. Councilwoman Johnson and then Benedict.
Thank you. I think the purpose of the resolution, as you said, Chair, is just sort of start this process. We've got some temporary things and some investigation that needs to be done before we would make any type of permanent move where compensation would be coming directly from an administrative account in FY27, where staffing would be put in place for a permanent move. There's got to be, you got to start somewhere is my point. And so that's sort of where we are, is starting the process of getting general services to start looking for that place. Certainly they will be, I can't imagine them starting a process and not consulting with the assessor's office to say, what type of, accessibility do you need? What type of staffing are they going to need? All of these questions will be answered in this 6 weeks. I also think it's really smart to put in a 6-week time limit or a time limit at all to report back to what we have found or they have found in these particular requests, because I personally have put in several resolutions requesting information and it's just gone into the wind and it's non-binding and you never get it back and it's pretty frustrating. So to put 6 weeks, which may be arbitrary, but I think it's enough to be able to say, hey, we've done this amount of work, this amount of research, this is what we've come back with in the 6-week period. Will they end up needing 8 weeks or 12 weeks? I don't know, but we got to start somewhere. And so that's why I'm supportive of this substitute. And I hope that everyone can move forward with the late file amendment to these very helpful discussions. I think that's really productive. And so I would move approval again.
Councilwoman Benedict, did you have anything to add?
Just one last note, and I really appreciate the question about staff for this and what it takes to put these meetings together. And that's why I specifically called out the facilitation of these meetings. NDOT, for instance, helps facilitate the Transportation Licensing Commission meetings. HR helps facilitate the benefit boards meetings. So all of the work, the assessor's already doing all of the work. And so, the goal here is really just, it's not to make any changes there. It's really simple to say, hey, we're going to pay these folks more. Let's make sure that that's transparent, where that's coming from, and have that payable this fiscal year administered by finance. Next fiscal year, hopefully this gives us an opportunity to talk about it and make a determination about next fiscal year. But from the facilitation side of things, employee perspective, I just wanted to touch base on that this is, I don't see anything being different than what the workload is today, and that's the goal. And so I think back to Councilmember Johnston's point, let's see what we get back in 6 weeks. If something is, if this doesn't work, I hope that we're going to hear, some improvements that would work better. But it sounds like the assessor is aligned that these would be good improvements to reach the goals of the MBOE. So again, I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the substitute? Hearing none, all those in favor of the substitute, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution as substituted? It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the resolution as substituted. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 3, Resolution 2025-1479, sponsor Toombs. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the civil rights claims of Alan Doskey against the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County in the amount of $70,000, with said amount to be paid out of the Judgments and Losses Fund. Can I get a motion? Do a second. It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Suara.
Thank you, Chair. Reading through the analysis, it's an unfortunate incident. But the part that I want a clarification on, and I don't know whether it's illegal that we do this or something from MMPS, there's a part on it that struck out with me that says it was part of his record and the expulsion was rescinded, but the incident is still reflected on his MMPS file. That was stated in the analysis. I want to know what impact does this have on this young guy to have this record in his file and how it impacts him going forward.
I can't speak to how this impacts him going forward. Yes, Allison Bustle from the legal department. I cannot speak to how this impacts him as an individual. I do know that the expulsion was retracted. So his student file does not reflect that he was expelled. The incident is, I guess, referenced in his file, but it is not referenced in a way that says he did something wrong and he was not punished for it because that was pulled out. I do not know if there's been any impact on him as a result of that.
And I have to ask twice so I'm old. Not that old. But basically, it's just the incident that is left. The punishment or the expulsion is no longer on his record.
Correct. He was not expelled. He was initially expelled, and then that was retracted by the school system.
And so once it's retracted, they took that out of his record.
The incident is referred to in his record. I have not seen the file itself to see what words are used. Okay. I think he wanted it not to be referenced at all, as if it didn't exist, as if nothing ever happened. And I think the school system was uncomfortable with completely pulling out any reference to the incident at all. But the expulsion was rescinded. There was no discipline administered as a result of the incident.
Okay. Not being an attendant, I'm just reading it as a mother of a young boy. I just look at it as after reading the entire incident, what happened to him was not fair. Right? And it was wrong, and that's why all of that happened. But when I read the statement that says the expulsion was rescinded, but it was still in his file, that's the part. So is there any way that, and I don't know, again, maybe this is a school board question, but since you've not seen the file, is there any way that I can request that you all look at it and just want to make sure that there's nothing that can negatively impact somebody's life going forward? I don't know what that file looks like, but that statement is what worries me because he said it was still in his file.
I'm happy to try to request the CUME file and see what it says about the incident. My understanding is it just refers to the incident because they didn't want to essentially erase history, but there is no discipline or
anything.
negative consequence as a result of this in his file.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Johnston?
I'm sorry, I'm just reading this analysis and it says that calling 911 after the police had arrived caused serious disruption and was against school policy. So is it MNPS's policy, and May, I don't know if there's anybody here to speak to that, is it MNPS's policy that it's against to not be able to call 911 if you believe that there's an active shooter? Maybe the student didn't know that the police were already, but what is their policy that they feel was violated? Because I don't want a child to feel like they can't call 911 if they think that there's an active shooter, or that there's an imminent danger on the property. You're nodding your head. You obviously have an answer.
I understand. I don't think there's a written policy that they're referring to. I do think the way it was described to us is that initially he was expelled because they felt like his call was not necessary under the circumstances because there were already police on scene that were attending to the situation. That's my understanding. Ultimately, that was retracted. And he was not disciplined as a result of it. I also want to be careful not to get into privileged communications with my client. So there's only so much that I really can speak about in a public meeting as to what their position was on this.
Sure, I mean, and obviously they retracted it, so they know that they were wrong. It's just unfortunate that I don't want people to feel like they can't call 911, and dispatch, I think, can handle, they know when police are on the scene and they can tell someone that, like they do that all the time. So for anyone, the 5 people that might be watching this, please don't ever feel like you can't call 911 if you are afraid.
Councilwoman Porterfield, you still have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question goes along the lines of Councilwoman Soares' questioning or statements about the incident still being reflected in the student's file. Is there anyone here from MNPS that can speak to that?
We do have someone coming to the back. If you could introduce yourself.
David Brom, Metro Nashville Public Schools. Councilmember Porterfield, I'll check into that and see. I don't have the specifics of that, but I'll need to kind of look at it and see and talk to our folks to see kind of exactly what that means. I don't believe obviously that there's an expulsion that's on that record, but we'll kind of try to put some context into that and I'll get back with you. I just at this point can't answer at this moment.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Along the lines of Councilwoman Soares, as a mother, also as a former teacher, I would be livid if my child was taken out of the school in handcuffs, taken to juvenile detention center, and released for something that they didn't do wrong. Nobody questioned the child. According to this, the police didn't question them, the principal didn't question them, but we punished the child by expelling them. And I am so glad that we rescinded the expulsion, but this is a child's education and this is a child's future. And this is also, it is very stigmatizing. It is traumatizing to have handcuffs put on you. So to have an innocent child handcuffed and taken out of the school is completely unacceptable. And as a mother, I would be upset if that was still in my child's file, unless it was explicitly clear, even if it says that the expulsion was rescinded, unless it is explicitly clear absolving this child of any wrongdoing. You don't want anything in that file that's going to negatively impact this child, their future, their opportunities to go into the military, to college, anything that they want to do. So my question will be, so along the lines of Councilwoman Soares, is just to make sure that we're getting some clarity on what is in that file. And I also understand the confidentiality of the student, so I know we may not get the exact verbiage of what's in that file, but I think it is imperative that it is extremely clear that this child did not do anything wrong, that that any reference that could adversely impact this child is removed from the file, and also going forward, making sure that we're looking at following policies. I cannot imagine a policy in which a student is expelled without discussing an incident with a student. That is so inappropriate on every single level. That is no way that it is appropriate to expel someone without having a conversation with them. So I would hope that if there was any type of that we are reviewing the policies to make sure that we all know what the policies are and that we're following the policies so that we're not having adverse impact on our students by expelling them for incidents that they didn't do.
Councilwoman Evans Siegel.
Thank you, Chair. To add on to the very wise and accurate words of my colleague, I think that it's hard for people who don't have school-aged kids to know how terrified school-aged kids are of getting shot in school. They are Googling on YouTube what to do if there's an active shooter. How do I stay safe? How do I stay alive? They are sharing this information with their friends. They are asking their parents. A lot of parents don't even know they're doing this. I only know because after Covenant, my then sixth grader told me that all the kids had shared it because they didn't feel like in sixth grade they had been told enough about how to survive. And if we have kids who are afraid to be in school, who, to my colleague's point, don't feel like they can share that freely, who are not given the grace to have the conversation by those in charge to figure out what is going on, then we are further creating a culture of fear that is incredibly unfair to them.
Councilwoman Johnston.
We're spending a lot of time on this, not that it's not worthy, but it's whatever time. I'm wondering if you can guarantee, I'm sure you can look it up very quickly, this child's file, and by tomorrow, let us know that you don't have to tell us verbiage, but just give us some peace of mind that there is nothing in this child's file that reflects anything about this incident at all.
I'll try to put some context around this within privacy concerns for this student and everything, and I'll go back to our folks and reach out and see what we can and can't share and try to, again, give council some context from the situation from the MMPS point of view.
Great, and if you can just share that with Ms. Darby. Thank you.
All right. Any additional discussion on the settlement agreement? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 4, Resolution 2025-1480, sponsors Toombs and Huffman, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan government to join the state of Tennessee and other local governments in amending the Tennessee State Subdivision Opioid Abatement Agreement and approving the related settlement agreements. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to see if there's any information at this point on how much this will go actually to treatment as opposed to just data gathering, which we seem to do a lot of. So is there someone here from Health that might speak to that?
If you could introduce yourself
and welcome.
Recognize.
Thanks. Hi, Kristen Zach from the Health Department. So this money's being received will go out competitively as we've done in the past. And we do have an RFP that's being reviewed downtown now. And it will allow, basically the full, it'll allow providers to bid on the full abatement strategy. So, and then it'll be scored and as we normally do, but we couldn't say at this point like how much will go for treatment versus other things.
Anything additional, Councilwoman?
Thank you. I'll just say, it's good we're getting this. There's a big problem that needs to be solved, and I hope we can spend a lot of it on treatment. So thank you.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item number 6, Resolution 2025-1482, sponsors Toombs and Hill, resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement with TD Synex Corporation for the purchase of advanced technology solutions for the Department of Information Technology Services. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question. We have several of these, and most of these cooperative purchasing agreements will end up saving us about 10%. And this go round, for whatever reason, this is the one where on $1 million expected value, we'll save 55,000, which just seems like a really small amount. So I'm just wondering, I keep hearing that there's also the option of a state contract where we may be able to work with the state contract on some things and possibly save more. So if someone from IT could just speak to how this particular option was chosen and if others were looked at that might have better savings.
If you could introduce yourself first and you're recognized.
Hi, John Buckner. I'm Assistant Director with Information Technology Services. This particular vendor, we have a contract in place to support our VMware infrastructure, and that calculation was based on the 3-year agreement for VMware. So this vendor, we use them in order to be a single source, and we felt it's better to do a co-op to make it more cooperative. However, we have an existing agreement, and we need to pay them, and that's the purpose, and that's the reason for the $55,000.
Thank you. So it at least saves you some RFP time, I guess?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I'm good.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Item number 7, Resolution 2025-1483, sponsor Toombs, resolution to extend the deadline for the Contract and Compliance Board to provide recommendations for the scope of safety plans for construction project procurement and contractor payment application requirements to the purchasing agent in the Metropolitan Council. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Allen. Swara, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted someone to speak to what is the cause of the delay. I know that this board was put together because of unfortunate incidences that happened. And so while we're still pushing back the approval of the safety plan, how is safety being and compliance being measured right now, if anybody can talk to that?
If you could introduce yourself and you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Trey Atkinson. I'm the new director for the Contract and Compliance Board. Was just onboarded here back in May. So through these last 90 days, we've been, during our board meetings, which has only been 3 so far, we've been taking the opportunity to train our board members on our current Metro policy and procedures, our contract administration, how all that works. A lot of conversation with the Metro Legal on how our functions and bylaws have been established to keep them in their lane and what they're going to focus on. We did push the dates when I was first hired to September, thinking we could do that in about 90 days, and it's obviously taken a little bit more time to do that. We actually are looking to adopt the bylaws that have been set forth for the board next Tuesday at our next board meeting, and we are currently drafting some recommendations involving safety language in our contracts, along with some pay application stuff that we're working with procurement and our finance departments to make that happen here by the end of the year. Once it gets through legal and gets through the approval process and adopted, the board did recommend during the holidays and upcoming issues that we're working through that it's just going to have to be pushed to the January meeting so we can put that forth for the February council meeting. It's just taking longer and a little bit longer time frame.
Councilwoman Swara.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, sir. And so while the plan is being finalized, you are actually addressing safety and stuff in the contract that is happening now. Is that correct?
Yes, this functions of this board is confined right now to the Department of General Services construction projects. We have about 5 or 6 of them going on now. Already established relationships with our current GCs and subcontractors involving our safety protocols, and yes, getting that under our belt, and do have OSHA and TOSHA requirements in place as always on our GCs.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 13, Resolution 2025-1489, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, Welsh, and Allen. A resolution approving a grant contract between the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Mental Health Cooperative for the provision of emergency psychiatric care for individuals in crisis at the Mental Health Crisis Treatment Center and staff to support the Nashville Police Department co-response model known as Nashville Partners in Care and the Nashville Fire Department co-response model known as Nashville Responders Engaged and Committed to Help. Can I get a motion? Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. I think this is a great program. I'm proud of Nashville for doing it, and I think it's a good way to spend our public safety money. Can someone tell us how many precincts this is in and how many fire stations and how many shifts? Are we covering everything now?
I see a familiar face coming to the table. If you could introduce yourself for the record and you're recognized.
Thank you. Chris Gilder with the Metro Police Department. We are currently at every single precinct now. Since its inception, Partners in Cares responded to over 58,000 calls for service. 11,000 of them were specifically crisis calls that came in as crisis calls. And they've had a phenomenal success in the sense that only about 4.4% of those calls for service have had to result in an arrest. The rest of them were able to be handled in another manner. So, and I should also mention that we've had over 600 officers and supervisors go through the 40-hour crisis intervention training as well. So even though they're not a part of the co-response team, they have had the crisis intervention training.
Councilwoman Allen.
And then we were just kind of starting with the midnight shift or whatever. Is there a reason to expand to other shifts, or are we able to cover whatever we need to?
My understanding is they're moved across all the shifts, but what we started with a precinct because of manpower issues both on our side of the house and also on the mobile crisis side. And then as we built up manpower and were able to get folks trained, then we started expanding across the precincts. And so now we're in every single one.
Anything additional, Councilwoman? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Council. Mark Young, National Fire Department. Thanks to the council, we was able to expand our REACH program this budget year. So now we are in 2 stations with a extended response times.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Item number 15, Resolution 2025-1491, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, and Welsh. A resolution approving amendments 10, 11, and 12 to a Community Health Workers for Public Health Response and Resilient Grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to address COVID-19 health disparities in the Nashville area. Can I get a motion? Is there a second? It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilwoman Suara.
Thank you, Chair. This is a good one, and I'm glad that we were able to sue and get the money back. Just for clarification in the analysis, it states that the amount that we deobligated was $1,130,000, but when we filed to reobligate, we only did $1 million, and I wasn't sure why there's a discrepancy of $130,000 if we're not taking all of it.
Ms. Wiggins?
So when the federal mandate came down and we couldn't get the money anymore, so we are deobligated $1,130,000, right? But then when we won the injunction, we went ahead and reobligated the money. But according to this analysis, we're only reobligating $1 million, not the entire amount that we deobligated to start with. And I was just wondering what the difference in that amount is.
Is there someone from health here? If you could recognize yourself again, introduce yourself again and you're recognized.
Kristen Zach with the Department of Health. I have the 1 million in front of me, so I'm not clear, but I can follow up on that.
Yes, if you can follow up, my analysis that I'm looking at says the obligated amount is $1,130,788.20. But then it says when we try to reactivate or reobligate, we're only doing 1 million. And so there's 130,000 that is not accounted for. And I was just wondering whether it's a timing thing. I was just curious to see why there's a difference between the amount that we deobligated and what we reobligated.
Okay, I'll check into that.
If we can have it before tomorrow, that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting, motion carries. Item number 19, Resolution 2025-1495, sponsors Toombs, Evans, Siegel, Welsh, and Allen. A resolution accepting a strengthening mobility and revolutionizing transportation SMART Stage 2 grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure to leverage advanced data to deliver multimodal safety, to set the standard for safe operation of corridors for all road users through targeted Vision Zero interventions. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting, motion carries. All right, there is item number 23 is a late file resolution, sponsor Toombs. A resolution approving a $260,000 settlement agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by and through the Information Technology Services Department and Comcast of Nashville One LLC. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Item number 24, bills on second reading, Bill 2025-1003, sponsors Toombs, Huffman, Hill, and Bowe, an ordinance to amend Section 10.60.020 of the Metropolitan Code to transfer the administration related to the registration of burglar and fire alarm systems from the Department of Codes Administration to the Nashville Fire Department. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Evans Siegel.
Thank you, Chair. I think a lot of us heard from all of our alarm permit holders when they needed to start printing them and taping them to their windows, which we have fixed, but it does sort of, I think, suggest there are a lot of people paying attention to these who have them. I know that some of our other metro departments have struggled to do online permit processing. The health department has struggled. Parks is having trouble taking online payments for registration. I'm curious if the fire department has a system in place to be able to take the online payments, to send the reminder emails that Codes has been doing, and to handle that administrative part without making it an in-person task.
You could introduce yourself and you're recognized.
Lawrence Hutchinson Fire Department. Yes, ma'am, to answer your question, we do have the same system that Codes uses currently, and have no problem accepting any type of payment, or it'll be the same process, basically.
Councilwoman.
And I believe that Code sends like an automatic email out every year to remind people because it's the same system. Is that already set up?
Yeah, it'll be the same system. There will be some modifications, but it won't be modifications immediately. It'll be just as time goes on, but everybody will be made aware of any changes that'll come up.
Councilwoman.
Sorry, final question. I think these renew in April for everybody countywide. Are we going to be able to send some sort of email to everybody ahead of time, letting them know that the system has been changed and they'll need to be doing it differently?
Yes, if I'm understanding correctly, I'm going to defer to Will Dodd on that one. But I believe over the past several years, the permits have been being renewed at different times and not all in April. They were at one time all done in April, but my understanding is the way it's done now is that they block them out by some sort of number or alphabet at however it was started to break them up throughout the year. So it wasn't an influx all at one time on the system in April. And yes, any changes or modifications, and the only change or modification it would maybe be some information provided that's usable on the backside. Everything else should still stay seamless as far as registration.
Did you want to hear from Mr. Dodd as well?
Always love hearing from
Mr. Dodd, did you introduce yourself and then if you have anything to add?
Will Dodd, Metro Codes. Commander Hutchinson said it finally.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Item number 25, Bill 2025-1008, an ordinance establishing a voluntary attainable housing incentive program for Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County for the purpose of authorizing certain incentives to be provided to property owners who seek to build multifamily attainable housing. Sponsors Allen, Rutherford, Coupin, Nash, Gamble, and others. Can I get a motion? What is your point of order, Councilwoman?
I think this is a point of order. That's agenda item 24. You said agenda item 25, but you read agenda item 24. If that's the one that I pulled, I was pulling 1009, agenda item 25. So I don't know if anybody else pulled 24.
We just did 24 and we're on item 25. Okay.
I'm looking at the document that's online, so I just want to make sure that the correct one got pulled. So the one that I wanted to pull was BL 2025-1009.
Yes, Councilwoman, that is not on the consent agenda. So yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this one. I would like to move to defer to November 4th with a brief explanation. So,
Been properly moved and seconded, Councilwoman Allen.
thank you. Just, this involves, this is using state-enabled legislation to create local legislation to set up the planning department to give some height bonuses in exchange for voluntary attainable housing, which we're excited to have another tool in our tool chest. But it is connected to the RL zoning, which won't exist until those bills get passed. So this just gives some time for those to catch up. So I would like to defer to November 4th.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded to defer to November 4th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Item number 26, Bill 2025-1009, sponsors Captains Gamble and Allen, an ordinance approving a lease agreement by and between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Public Education and KIPP Nashville, a Tennessee nonprofit corporation. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Cap.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask some questions of MNPS on this one, if that's okay.
Mr. Braun. Back to you, Councilmember.
Metro Nashville Public Schools.
Back to you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Braun, would you just explain a little bit the background to this proposed lease agreement?
Right. So the elementary school that KIPP runs at Kirkpatrick Elementary School was authorized by the Metro School Board in 2015. And was on a 10-year, it was authorized for 10 years. Concurrently, KIPP entered into a lease for the Kirkpatrick Elementary School to operate that school. This year, the lease, the authorization came back up for renewal. And as the authorizer, based on state standards, KIPP's Kirkpatrick Elementary School was renewed again, and we've concurrently renegotiated a lease with KIPP to continue to operate the elementary school at the Kirkpatrick building.
So the process for the school board to renew a charter is set out in state law, the standards and the process.
Well, since the first lease that we entered into in 2015, some laws have changed with regard to charter schools, and in particular, the right of first refusal bill that passed last year put different standards with regard to these leases on schools. So, for instance, leases now have to be at or at near market value based on rent studies, and they're shifted around several responsibilities from the lessor to the lessee with regard to maintenance, upkeep, et cetera. The earlier lease was pretty far below market value. And this new lease, based on rate studies, is pretty close to that, probably for about a $250,000 a year benefit to the city and the school system. And then with regard to the responsibilities in the first one, for instance, we were required to do capital repairs, utilities, ground maintenance, refuse, et cetera. This one, according to state law now, the charters are now responsible for their own utilities, routine maintenance of the facilities. So we've taken an opportunity really here to beef up and really kind of put down what those responsibilities are so that there's no real ambiguity between what the lessee has to do and what the lessor has to provide.
And the school board unanimously approved both the renewal of the charter and the lease agreement, right?
Correct.
And how are there any other ways that Metro's relationship to this school have been strengthened through this new lease?
Yeah, so as we've gone through the process too, Kirkpatrick at one time was a default zone school, and we are now kind of in conversations, and over the next 5 years, it will now become a totally optional school. So for instance, this year, any kindergartner who lives in the area that was at one time having Kirkpatrick as a zone is now going to be zone default to Warner. And that'll increase over that. And again, this was all done in agreements between KIPP and the school system.
Thank you, Mr. Brom. And I'll just ask my colleagues to support this in light of all that information.
Thank you, council member. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? You're not voting. All right, motion carries. Item number 28, Bill 2025-1011, sponsors Coopin, Toombs, Gamble, Huffman, and Horton, an ordinance approving 2 lease agreements between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County and P&H Properties LLC for the use of space located at 120 3rd Avenue North and 211 Commerce Street. Can I get a motion? It's been properly moved and seconded. Moving on to discussion. Councilwoman Evans Siegel, do you want to move your amendment?
Yes, Chair. So moved.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Back to you, Councilwoman Evans Siegel, on the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. Just this amendment cleans up a couple small legal issues, but it also does 2 kind of more important substantive changes that I want to bring people's attention to. One is this is a 50-year lease, which is a really long time for a lease. The insurance was set at $2 million per occurrence. There now is a provision in here that says that every 5 years we will adjust that so that we don't get into a situation where, say, year 45, it's significantly underinsured and there is, I don't know, say a massive fire and there isn't money to cover it. So that was added. Also added a provision that requires that the public park be open to the public except when there is a private event. The lease already defines what a private event can be and when those can be had. But this way, the park isn't shut down unless there is a private event and otherwise is open to the public.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? The amendment passes. Can I get a motion on the bill as amended? It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the bill as amended. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Suara.
Thank you, Chair, and I've got a lot of my question answered all throughout the day, and thanks for that amendment to the park space because that was one that I was worried about. So my last question, which I think have not got answered, is related to the event space. I understand that there is no property taxes on the park space because it's still a public use, but the event space is one that is generating income for the entity, and so is now a private use. So would we be getting property taxes on that part of the building? On that part of the structure?
Across Metro Legal, we probably will, because I think the assessor will view that as an expansion of the building itself.
Councilwoman Suara, anything else?
No, that's it. I just didn't see anything related to that. I wasn't sure if that is something that will be in the in all that I read, I didn't see that. So if we will be, then that's great. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Item number 29, Bill 2025-1019, sponsors Toombs, Evans, Siegel, and Allen, an ordinance accepting and appropriating public water system settlement funds from the 3M Company to the Metropolitan Department of Water and Sewerage Services. Can I get a motion? Been properly moved and seconded. Can I get a motion on the amendment? It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the amendment. Councilwoman Darby, can you explain what the amendment does? Director Darby.
The amendment removes the reference to a settlement from DuPont. To the extent that any settlement funds come from DuPont, that will be in separate legislation once those funds are known.
Any additional discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. Can I get a motion on the bill as amended? It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the bill as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Any not voting? Motion carries. That completes our agenda items. The only update is that our vice chair, who is not present because he is working out of state, is Councilman Jason Spain. So if we could congratulate him for the viewing audience for being vice chair and make fun of him for not being here, even though. All right, thank y'all. Meeting is adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.